Hey everyone, it's baze.djunkiii transmitting from Hamburg, Germany, back with a new video and back with another deep dive into my archive because I pulled something up from a box that has never been seen before, I guess, and is probably still unreleased after all these years. I'm talking about this one. This is a promo CD, Flying Sperm, featuring Graf Richard, remixed by Pascal Desapio, Der reichste Wichser von Bielefeld. This sounds very obscure, and it kind of is. To show you the whole thing, this is just a hand printed or like normally printed cover. Here's the track list down there, and there is a story behind that. This is an unreleased piece of, like, I guess late 90s Eurodance, dance floor, Eurorave, whatever you want to call it. Looks like this on the back. Don't try to call the management, because the guy behind Roste Management, which was my first mentor in the music industry, has passed away a few years ago, without me knowing, actually, because we lost track of each other, but someone I knew told me later, and we hadn't spoken like for 20 years or so, just because, well, sometimes life goes in the way. And well, that guy was very interesting. He was my first mentor in the music industry, as I said. I met him when I was about, I guess, 19, probably 20-ish. I'm gonna like publish a short on that like in a few days. And he was basically a guy that told me a lot about the music industry in general. He wasn't like into electronic music necessarily, but had more like a rock and like band-like experience and stuff. And he told me about a guy that was called Der Graf a while ago, not the Rosenstolz, the other goth guy, not that Der Graf, but a guy who was like actually some kind of like young aristocrat he knew. He was into music, making music and stuff, and he basically worked under the name Graf Richard and had produced this track, which he gave me. And well, this is quite obscure because I couldn't find this on Discogs, or I couldn't find any information on Flying Sperm as well, or on Graf Richard, or on this track in particular. So what this is basically, imagine like if you know Blümchen, the German like dance, mid-90s dance, rave, Eurorave girl, that kind of music, basically, that kind of production value, very poppy, very uplifting, very upbeat. And then we got a guy singing on top of that, who's probably Graf Richard, which sounds a little bit like Andreas Dorau in Fried from Jupiter, and that kind of like a little bit high-pitched male vocals, and he sings about him being der reichste Wichser von Bielefeld, which is basically translating to the wealthiest wanker in the city of Bielefeld. And he talks about that his income and the source of his wealth is donating sperm at a sperm bank, basically, so he makes his money like literally as a wanker and is wealthiest, and this is how he's become the wealthiest wanker in the city of Bielefeld. So, and there are 3 mixes on there. The radio cut expectedly is well, cheesy. Well, all of them are cheesy, but cheesy, uplifting. The bass drums are not that upfront. It's more like a fun little dance number. Basically, the so-called Rave edit, which is the longest in here, is like 520. Has like this very 90s sounding, straightforward, a little bit like unprocessed bass drums, but very present. So you can see this working on a dance floor, and the club edit basically is that, with the bass drums a little bit more restrained and a little bit more, like a little bit shorter, so a little bit more presentable. But overall, it's a kind of like fun little cheesy number, which could have been like more of a novelty hit in the days, but I don't know if that ever got out there. But and I never seen the name Pascal Desapio out there as well, so couldn't find that on Discogs like proper, and I don't have any idea if that like combination of people has ever worked together, or just produced this like unreleased gem, which still works. So I've listened to this like a few times today, and surprisingly the CDR, so you can see the CDR print through the paper label, and there is this like bluish CDR thing. Yeah, it hasn't decayed still after like 25 or 26 years. And this was like a reminder for me on how much probably interesting unreleased music there must be out there in some studio, in some like former management firms or something like that, and in record label basements that has something, and like stuff that has never been released and never seen the light of day. And well, if you know something about this, please let me know in the comments, because I find this still interesting. It's not like super high quality underground stuff, but it's somehow cute and somehow like a memory for me. So an interesting find in one of my boxes, which are still sitting full of like DJ mixes and like well, CDRs without any annotation, any text on there. So yeah, it also brought back memories of that guy and of my very early days when I was still like greenish, because I left school in 1997, and when I met this guy it was like 1 year later, so I had just turned 20. Knew basically nothing about how the industry worked, and about like networking and about like people and stuff. So I learned in a more in a general sense, not really in terms of like getting contacts from that guy, even though he had been involved with like majorly known artists, and but it was like a kind of like general education, a long set of conversations over the years, where, because I met him a lot and I visited him in his like office turned flat, turned both of them, and well, he was like, I guess, diabetic as well, so he wasn't in like the best shape and health at the time. But this is just a side note, because there is a short comment on that. But here is a little cute find still, Flying Sperm featuring Graf Richard, unreleased Eurotechno, Eurodance from the late 90s. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you know any of this, as I said, let me know in the comments. I'm out getting into editing mode. See you in the next one.